He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Here, our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. It's great to be back. I've been chomping at the bit. You know, from time to time, I have to go out of town. Family calls, other business calls, and you got to do what you got to do. But I'm here, and I want to thank you all. I want to thank the folks that set in on the program, all the affiliates, most of all you. The greatest of great audiences. There's really so much to tackle here, and I want to go deep with you in a moment. But I also want to announce what I've kind of hinted at over the past couple of months. I will, in fact, be launching, they call it a vidcast. It's a podcast with a video next Tuesday. And it's going to be called Liberty's Voice with Mark Levin. That would be me. I want to make it clear to all of you in the radio world and our great affiliates and satellite and so forth. Radio is the mothership. You can do things on radio, with radio, that you can't do on or with anything else. And it is my first love. And my goal is to build up the radio audience with the overlay of the video cast, which will be 3 days a week for about 45 minutes, 45 minutes each. So basically these don't work in parallel, they work in a synchronized way, where I bring new audiences to radio and radio audiences to the video casts. That is, podcast with a video. What we have found through our own research is there's about a 7% overlap between the radio audience and our current radio podcast, which is basically a truncated form of the radio program in podcast form. 7%. I would like to bring more people in the podcast, videocast world to radio, and more people to the videocast world. So these will be fresh, independent types of programs. And I think it's going to work out beautifully, and I think it'll serve as a model for radio stations, radio companies, and radio hosts, as a matter of fact. There are no big radio hosts who are doing this. Regional hosts, some will have some station, some audience, but this program is a nationally syndicated program in every corner of the country, in fact, all over the world. And so I feel this is a way to breathe additional strength into audience share in radio and vice versa. Again, We'll see how it goes. I think it's going to go beautifully. And there's no better audience than you to do this with. Liberty's Voice with Mark Levin, because that's what we're going to talk a lot about. I want to talk about it right now. There's a lot of things we could talk about, and we will. But I want to start off with this proposition. As I was with my wife on the jet flying back to the homeland. We were in the United States, but you understand what I mean. I got a National Geographic magazine, the most influential figures of ancient history. It is an incredible magazine, this particular series. Absolutely incredible. When you read about these emperors and these empires, the vast majority of which were brutal, and the vast majority of whom were evil. Not all, but most. The wanton killing. And this is how most of these men became famous. But in this entire magazine, which is quite substantial, it goes through all kinds of emperors and kings and leaders and so forth and so on, pharaohs. It was this line that caught my attention. Ready for this? This one line caught my attention. Before emerging first as their rivals and ultimately as their rulers, the process in which ambitious people at the margins of an established society became its masters would be repeated throughout history by great empire builders, from the Romans who conquered Greece and the Mongols who overran China, and in so many instances. The ambitions of people at the margins of an established society became its masters, would be repeated throughout history. Something is happening to the West, and more to my concern, the United States, that really has never happened before. As I got to thinking about all this, when they're talking about conquering, they're talking about physically, militarily, conquering a society, an established society and culture. I can't think of any example of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, or in these cases, the greatest empires on the face of the earth, sabotaging themselves, literally committing suicide, having the knowledge of what has come before, thousands of years before, hundreds of years before, dozens of years before. What kind of a country opens its borders, indeed imports people from parts of the world who will not assimilate, who will not contribute, who seek to destroy and seek to conquer? What kind of a country does that to itself? We've talked about the immigration invasion. It's not an invasion, it's a parade. When the borders are wide open, how can you call it an invasion? An invasion assumes a hostile takeover. But it's not hostile. It's celebrated by the people who are doing this to us. Who? The Democrat Party is a political institution. All over Europe, the liberal parties, the labor parties, the left. Secularists in a society. Or religious morons. who believe that God wants them to open the doors to anybody who wants to come in. I can't think of a single society, you can go through ancient history up to today, that has survived such a self-sabotage. I can't think of any. Not one. And we won't either. You know, folks, people my age, they start thinking about retirement and so forth. I just told you I'm going to do this video cast. I don't need the money. My time is less and less with family, which is why I have to take off from time to time. But I am so worried and concerned about my country, our country, that it would be really outrageous if I say, you know what, I'm going to step aside. I've done well. I've done what I can. It's over. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I am telling you that this is our battle, our generation's battle. This is it. This is the biggest battle that we've ever had to fight, this generation, my generation, our generation. And we must engage. We're watching what's happened to Europe. Europe's only about 5 years ahead of us. That's it. What was done to this country by Biden and Obama has already severely damaged it. And by the rhinos who acquiesce to it, who accede to it, they're no better. They're no better. And I'll go further. By the Tucker Carlsons and his ilk, who are literally traitors to this country, selling out their own country with slick talk, with deceit and evasion and conniving, giving aid and comfort to the enemy. Who's the enemy? Islamist regimes are the enemy. They are the enemy. You see, folks, this is an ideology that goes back most prominently to the 7th century or so, but even before that. It's an ideology that does not accept our embrace of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment that really came about, if I had to pick a period, the 1500s and 1600s. The men who our founders embraced. The John Locke's, the Montesquieu's, and so many others. Talking about individual freedom, God-given rights to each individual. Each individual is a sovereign creature of God's. And that sovereignty, a circle of sovereignty around each human being that must not be penetrated or molested by government or by anybody else. The right to life is the number one natural right, God-given right, which is exactly what the Islamist wants to take away and control and enslave. This fusion I've talked about, I've written about for decades between the Judeo-Christian belief system, which far predates Islam, far predates it. Islam about 700 years after Christianity, which is why I laugh in a furious way, if you will, when people say, oh, the Jews are on the land of the Arab Muslims. It's not even possible. It's not even possible. There were no Arab Muslims 4,000 years ago in Judea and Samaria. Oh, the West Bank of Jordan. There was no Jordan kingdom 120 years ago. There were no Palestinians 60 years ago. But that for another day. I want to talk about America. We've opened our country to an ideology that seeks to destroy our country. The entire founding, the principles in the Declaration, the protections in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they're being used against us. And I want to dig into this very deeply. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There are 2.6 billion Christians in the world. 2.6 billion. It's the largest faith in the world. It only represents about 36% of the world population. The second largest faith in the world is Islam, 2 billion. About 24% of the population. By 2030, in about 5 years, is expected to grow by 10% to 2.2 billion, whereas Christianity is expected to be pretty much the same at 2.6 billion. Do you know how many Jews there are in the world, Mr. Producer? 15.2 million. Now, but for the Holocaust, you can go back to the Spanish Inquisition and so forth and so on, there would be as many Jews, if you take out all these historical Holocaust against the Jews, as there are Chinese. 1.4 billion. 15.2 million. 7 million of whom live in Israel, with 2 million others. Israel's a population of 9 million. Now let me ask you a question. Do you think the Islamists who are in the United States are going to be satisfied in conquering, quote-unquote, word their word, not mine, 6 to 7 million Jews in the United States? You think that's it? You think that's it as far as they're thinking? I'm going to tell you something. You're going to hear what they think. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the cure for the common liberal. Talk to Mark now at 877-381-3811.
Just some factual information as an example as I move on here. Judaism was founded over 4,000 years ago. They call it the period of antiquities. It's more than 2,000 years older than Islam, which was founded in the 7th century in the Arabian Peninsula by Muhammad. And the archaeological sites and the history and so forth and so on prove it. They prove that Judea and Samaria are part of the original birthplace of the Jewish faith. So when we say it's the West Bank, or we even have our administration say, no, you can't claim it and so forth and so on, it's the only faith on the face of the earth that can't claim its origins as its origins. I'm just being honest. It's the truth. Even we oppose it in this country as a matter of policy. No, you may not annex Judea and Samaria. Annex it? Annex it? That's what Jordan did. A kingdom that's been around barely 100 years or so. But none of this matters, does it? Here in the United States, when you're talking about destroying the United States from within, you're talking about destroying the Judeo-Christian belief system, the embrace of the Enlightenment, but it is aimed most specifically at Christianity. I don't play games. I'm very blunt about history and reality and facts. I don't really feel the need, like so many do, to be deceptive or to candy coat stuff. We were founded on Judeo-Christian belief systems by Christians primarily, by white Christians primarily. And I know this is hated by the DEI crowd. I know it is hated by different ethnic front groups, but that's American history. That's what it is. And Christians have a long history of being abused and attacked and murdered throughout Europe. And they're still being abused, attacked, and murdered throughout the African continent and in the Middle East. I mean, let's be honest, folks. You don't have Christians running around slaughtering people because of their faith, and you don't have Jews running around slaughtering people because of their faith. The two major Jewish populations, which is now a tiny population, are in Israel and the United States. Israel tries to defend itself, and Jews in America are not trying to destroy anybody. But Christians are being slaughtered, and I'm the first one to keep bringing this up over and over and over again. And not just in Nigeria, in the Sudan, in the Congo, and elsewhere. By Muslim Islamists in Africa. They're being slaughtered in the Arab world, and have been pushed. How is it possible that the oldest of the three religions, Judaism, and the second oldest of the three religions, Christianity, barely have a footprint in their birthplace? How is that possible? I'll tell you how it's possible. Because when Islam conquers lands, it imposes its will. It imposes its faith. There can be no diversity of quote-unquote faith or viewpoints. It eliminates adversity. It even eliminates its own kind, depending on who's in charge. You can look at one Muslim country after another. They're very violent and totalitarian. And as I've said for decades, more Muslims are slaughtered by Muslims than anybody is slaughtered by anybody in the entire world. Yemen, Syria, Iran, Gaza. This has now moved into our country in a significant way. We talk about Western philosophy. We talk about the basis for our belief systems. You literally have a movement that teaches our system in order to exploit it and destroy it. Free speech, freedom of assembly, the free exercise of religion, due process, and so forth and so on. Now, these are countries and ideologies from these countries that laugh at us. Sharia law doesn't provide for free speech the way we do, freedom of assembly the way we do, the freedom to exercise religion the way we do. The fundamentalists, just look at the fundamentalist countries: Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and many more. And many more. Particularly in the Middle East, though. Particularly in the Middle East. Now, this ideology is being imported into our country. It's being allowed into our country. It's being brought into our country by left-wing politicians, by power-hungry politicians who see this as the future, by politicians who've never liked America, who've always hated America, who have a Marxist ideology, even though they won't call it that. They call themselves progressives. And, of course, they're regressives, as I've coined and have discussed with you before. And it's spreading like a poison, taking advantage of our private property rights, of our zoning laws, in order to create a political base within our country. They've destroyed France. France is destroyed. They've destroyed Britain. Britain is destroyed. Sweden's destroyed. Austria is destroyed. Germany's being destroyed. There are now 50 million Muslims in Europe. At the turn of the century, there were 50,000. I want you to think back 10 years. Was any of this going on in our country? Maybe a little bit. But it certainly wasn't a 5-alarm fire, was it? It's not by mistake that we saw these violent riots in the streets of New York on these Ivy League college campuses, because this is where the Islamist faculty and the Marxist faculty have nestled themselves. They've created a system where faculty hires faculty, so it's an incestuous system. They exclude evangelical Christians, faithful Catholics, obviously Jews. And they call these, of course, systems of higher learning and education. And now it's happening in our public schools with the help of the radical left-wing, often Marxist teachers' unions. And we have foreign governments that are funding this. Qatar is a country of 330,000 citizens and about 1.2 million indentured servants from Nepal and India and so forth and so on. It is a horrendous place to live unless you're part of the elite class. And no, there are no Christian churches. Or maybe a couple they have in like a one-block area. But you have to have permission. You can't proselytize. You can't go public with it. You can't have your crosses that are public. The whole thing, just like communist China. You basically have a family, a monarchy. These are inbreds who are spending billions of dollars buying our politicians in both parties, in all parts of the government, buying athletes and coaches, buying various institutions, buying podcasters, buying media outlets, brainwashing our children and the next generation. If they succeed, it's over. If we're raising a generation of grandkids or kids that are repulsed by their own country, it's over. But they're weakening us. They're softening us up. It was bad enough when the radical left secularists were softening us up. But now it's not just them. They're opening the doors. They're opening the doors to this ideology. To this ideology. I want you to listen to me. I know we all just watched one of the most boring Super Bowl games in the history of football, but that's beside the point. Many of you are driving home. You go home to your families. You can have dinner. Some of you are still in your businesses listening. Some of you are listening on a podcast. Maybe you're in an exercise facility. Whatever. I want you to listen to me. While you're doing that, there are people in the underbelly of society who are trying to destroy what exists. They're organized, they are heavily funded, they have a strong foothold in the Democrat Party, they have a strong foothold in the bureaucracy at the State Department and elsewhere. The best, as Marco Rubio tries, and he does a fantastic job, these people are embedded. They survive from one administration to the other. They're working over our local communities, the zoning boards, as they strategically place mosques and community centers in areas where they believe a vote can make a difference, as they have in New York, as they are in Plano, Texas, and Houston, and Austin, and Tampa, and you can already see what it's going to look like, not just in Europe, but Dearborn, Michigan, Paterson, New Jersey. There's no tolerance whatsoever, none. In fact, people are frightened to walk down the street if they dare to wear a Star of David or a yarmulke or a cross. If they identify in a faith that's different than the faith that controls the community. This is what goes on now in Europe. This is what goes on in the Middle East, and this is what's going on in cities in America right now. Right now. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, here's Yasser Qadi, a Muslim scholar in Plano, Texas. Cut 24, go.
The election of somebody like Mamdani, it is a game changer. We need somebody like Mamdani to be the mayor of New York. And that is a victory for the ummah. I'm jumping the gun here, but this is one of the narrow-mindedness I need to break here. And if you don't understand this, then honestly you need to rethink through your understanding of civilizational strength. Everybody has a role to play. Muftis have a role to play, and politicians have the role to play. Let everybody be active in their role. This is a strength of our community. And of our greatest strengths, like I said, the political freedoms we have. The guy tried, not once, not twice, 8 times to shut our project down. I don't want to go into all the details because of time. He failed miserably at every single level, and the project is still going full steam ahead. Takbir. Do you understand what I'm saying here? The governor of one of the largest states of the world, Texas, everything's big in Texas, wanted to stop, and he tried, وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهِ. Multiple ways he tried. Alhamdulillah, that bill did not pass because of multiple reasons. Of them, we employed our lobbyists, money in the lobby. You have to do this reality. And yet here we are still debating, can I vote or not? Does voting shirk or haram or kufr? Wallahi, we are in one galaxy and the world is a different galaxy. Literally, it's just disconnected from reality. If we did not get involved, our masjid would have been shut down. Forget our project, right? These are some of the strengths. Very quickly, weaknesses. We have multiple weaknesses. Our biggest weakness is our percentage in this country. We are very disadvantaged. By the way, this is only in this country, because across the Western world, mashallah, tabarakallah, percentages are rising to the point of it's terrifying them. Sweden, 10% Muslim. Oslo, Norway, 10% Muslim. Oslo, of all places. Vienna, the Ottoman Turks tried 200 years, they couldn't do anything. Vienna is 10% Muslim, mashallah, tabarakallah. 10% Muslim. England, London, it is estimated 20%. I was in Australia a year and a half ago. Australia, Sydney, there are districts the size of maybe half of Austin that are 60% Muslim. Lakemba, go look it up. Lakemba in Sydney.
And he goes on. He's saying we're conquering Europe. We're conquering cities in Europe. Immigration, I've said it. Revolution by immigration. There's a lot more. I really need you to listen to this. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here on Radio Free America. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Look, I'm also sorry. We were preempted Saturday and Sunday. Now, Sunday, most of you were watching the Super Bowl anyway, on the Nancy Guthrie story. We weren't the only program preempted for that, of course. But we intend to be back in full programmatic mode this coming Saturday and Sunday. So hang in there. I appreciate it very much. I want to play a few more of these, and then I want to play the counter to this. A montage of Muslims. Really, these are, again, scholars and imams and so forth, not just a guy off the street. But it's all intentional. Cut 23, go.
Why am I migrating here? Why am I in America? The Prophet ﷺ's companions left Mecca to go to a land that had no Muslims. We are in this country purely for the sake of Allah. The moment you make this intention, you will look at things different. People will meet you different. How could it be that your co-workers know you as a Muslim for 10 years, not once you presented Islam to them? You don't know why your purpose is here. All you guys together, we are in this country for Allah.
As we're here living in the US, what is our role now? What is the way forward? Let me just quote for you an ayah of the Quran, and I'm going to try to encapsulate it. Allah is saying, do not obey the disbelievers. Don't yield to them. And then He gives us the process of what to do next. وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. And so make jihad against them.
What is your duty as a member of the Ummah now that you are also an American? It is our physical jihad duty to fight the entire earth until we enter it into the Ummah.
Talking about establishing Islam, and I think that's our jihad, to be honest. For us Muslims living in the West, yes, our jihad is to establish the deen of Allah through all means necessary.
And in that long-range process of making America Muslim, all of America Muslim.
And it goes on. They're not hiding. It's not a whispering campaign. They're out in the open if we'll just listen to them. Isn't it disgusting how distracted our politicians are that they allow this to go on? We have the weakest ruling class elitists imaginable. They're doing this to us. And then this, Florida Imams, January 2026, cut 21, go.
There's nearly 7 million American Muslims right now, alhamdulillah. Let's take gratitude in the fact that we're here in the great state of Florida. Part of power building is building a pipeline of leaders. I want to see, inshallah, one day governor of the state of Florida is a Muslim. Everybody say inshallah. The House has Muslims in there, say inshallah. Senators, Muslim senators, say inshallah.
Muslims are men who defend themselves, they defend their religion, they defend their principles, what they believe in. They don't apologize about jihad. They're not afraid of jihad. It's a part of who we are.
You understand jihad is terrorism. It's a part of who we are, he says. Go ahead.
Muslim is an individual who, part of his rojula, being a man, is not our wives do jihad. We do jihad.
Mm-hmm. Folks, I can put 1,000 of these together. Now, what does this have to do with where I'm going now? Iran. Iran is a 7th century barbaric regime that has already slaughtered, I guarantee you, more than 50,000 of its people, has over 300,000 of them imprisoned as it slaughters them. I've been, if not the loudest, one of the loudest voices insisting that we take military action and deal with this. And we have the isolationists, who, by the way, more and more are anti-American, are they not? More and more they are sympathetic to, or even worse, defending these Islamist regimes against us. Trashing Christians, trashing Jews. In fact, they have a mentality like the Islamists. No diversity of thought. You're either with them or you're the enemy. Some of them are getting paid. Some of them believe what they're saying. Really doesn't matter. They are what they are, and we know who they are. They're Tucker Carlson, Bannon. Who else do we have? I can't remember them all. But you know them all. So, what does Iran have to do with anything? Oh, I don't know. Any nation, or regime, I should say more accurately, that is willing to kill 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, 1 million of its own people, as I've said last week, will be more than happy to fire nuclear missiles into our cities. You heard these imams, you heard these scholars, didn't you? In fact, nuclear mushroom clouds are the quickest way, they believe, the quickest way to conquer all non-believers on behalf of God. In his name, in Muhammad's name. That's why they seek nuclear missiles and missiles that can go 7,000 miles and slam into the East Coast. If you can go 7,000 miles, you'll eventually be able to hit the entire United States. Now, the Iranian people have done us a big favor. In fact, they've died for us. They've died for their own freedom, and they've tried to overthrow that government with their bare hands by marching with their feet as they're being mowed down row after row after row. Do you know how hard it is to kill 50 to 100,000 people in a period of a couple days or weeks? It's not so simple. Unless the slaughter is morning, noon, and night, and it's constant on a massive scale with automatic weapons and explosives and so forth and so on. They have snipers just picking people off. What does that have to do with us? Everything! Everything! We are not safe because we're a nation with two oceans, because of intercontinental ballistic missiles, because of our immigration system and what's happened to our country. We are not safe by putting our head in the sand and pretending none of this is happening. It is happening. And that regime in Iran, supported by Qatar, supported by Saudi Arabia, 9/11 was Saudi Arabia, was Qatar. Let's stop kidding ourselves. The greatest attack on our country since Pearl Harbor, and we act like it never happened. Well, it did happen, and it'll happen again, and it'll be 100 times worse, 1,000 times worse. I've been fighting to take out that regime for 20 damn years, and last summer, I was fighting the isolationists, paid for or ideologically sympathetic to that regime, for God's sakes. with all the arrows and all the attacks about a Jew and a Jew and a Jew. I'm an American who is Jewish, and there are Americans who are Italian and Catholic and so forth. I care about this country, my country. And my family has fought for this country. And I don't need recent immigrants to this country who speak broken English telling me what to think about my country. And they will not silence me. Not now, not ever. Iran is a grave threat to us, to our children and grandchildren. If we don't take care of business with that regime, with Khomeini, our children, the next generation, is going to have to deal with a regime that has nuclear warheads on ICBMs that can hit our cities, and we'll have 50,000 ballistic missiles. What are we going to do then? How dare we? How dare we drop that on the heads of our kids and grandkids? When that regime is in the weakest position it's been in the 47 years it's been in existence. It's on its back, thanks to the Israelis. They took out their Air Force. They have no Navy. They took out their radar. They took out their ground-to-air missile system that was put there by the Russians. They've taken hit after hit after hit. I don't know what the hell we're negotiating. Listen to Margaret Thatcher in 1991, one of the greatest leaders of all time, quoting one of the greatest leaders of all time, Churchill. I want you to listen to what she has to say. Cut 22, go.
As Winston Churchill said in the 30s, if you give in to aggression, there will be no end to the humiliation you will have to suffer. Some people suggest there should be negotiations. What is there to negotiate about? You don't negotiate with someone who marches into another country, devastates it, killing whoever he stands in his way. You get him out, you make him pay, and see that he is never in a position to do these things again.
The Levin doctrine. You don't negotiate with a regime that says again and again and again that it intends to attack us with nuclear weapons. What's to negotiate? Mark's opinion. And slaughters its people like we haven't seen in so long. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if this task is too difficult for the greatest superpower on the face of the earth, when that country has no Navy to speak of, no Air Force to speak of, no radar effective systems to speak of, what are we going to do when we need to defend ourselves against the Communist Chinese or the Russians? Is that the state of our military? Seriously, I'm asking. It's been, what, 5 weeks, 6 weeks since the president laid down the law? Vice President said there's no red lines. I must have misheard then. But that doesn't really matter, does it? Look, my job is to use whatever intelligence I have, whatever scholarship I've gathered, whatever knowledge I've accumulated, and share it with you. And share it with you. I'm not a politician. I'm never going to be a politician. I see the politicians in the Senate with the smiles and the thumbs up and in the House and all the rest of it. I'm not a politician. I'm not running for anything. Not now, not ever. You give me your vote by listening. You don't always have to agree, but I think you'll agree I tell you from my heart, my soul, and my mind what I believe. And you folks in the audience, we agree on the vast majority of things we talk about. The idea that a regime, an Islamist regime, you heard these Islamists in our country talking about conquering us. The regime in Iran says they're not going to stop building nuclear weapons, whether we like it or not. And let me tell you something, America, no paper agreement's going to stop them. No diplomacy's going to stop them any more than it stopped North Korea. Where there were paper agreements after paper agreements, deal after deal after deal. Even this is different than North Korea in the sense that North Korea doesn't believe in a God, the regime there. These people believe their God wants them to blow us off the face of the earth. Now, they've said that to us. You just heard them over and over again. They're not satisfied until we and our beliefs are eliminated. Well, what if we don't agree? Death or enslavement. How do we know? Look around the world. What do you mean, how do we know? This is how other Muslims are treated by the Islamists. Look what's going on in Iran. Those brave, courageous, unbelievably remarkable people have stood up against that regime. And they're paying with their lives. While we all sit here comfortably and debate and negotiate. And I want to put in a strong footnote here, and I'm quite serious about this. The president is 100% right when he says we need another $500 billion in military spending. If it literally takes us 5 to 6 weeks to cut across the ocean and to get our position without coming under attack, that is a serious problem. We do not have anymore a two-ocean military capable of fighting 2 wars at once. That used to be the standard. Because consider, if our Navy, our subs, our Air Force were under attack by the Communist Chinese or the Russians, they weren't just sailing across the ocean and so it was a matter of time. Imagine if we were. This has, to me, opened my eyes to the fact that we do not have a big enough military. I've said it over and over again, but this is not theoretical. This is reality. It clearly is not big enough. But I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. Well, this is the value of conservative talk radio. This is the value of all these fantastic affiliates and platforms that we have. The value of the live streaming and the apps and satellite and all the rest. And when I say Radio Free America, I mean Radio Free America. And this is a very, very crucial time in human history, not just American history. Again, we have the benefit of history the benefit of remembering the Muslim Crusades, the benefit of remembering the Third Reich, the benefit of remembering Mao and Stalin and the Marxists. We have the knowledge. Now the question is, do we have the fortitude? We're going to find out if our ruling class is up to it. I fear that most of it is not. And that's a huge problem. We'll be right back. You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
Saving America, one show at a time. The Mark Levin Show, 877-381-3811.
I think it's time for Turning Point USA to drop Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon for good. I want the organization to survive and thrive. I want Charlie's creation to go on and go on and go on as long as possible. I want them to really be able to reach out to young people all over the country and to make a huge difference. But to platform Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon and then say we don't deplatform. Sure we do. In our own personal lives, there are people we won't talk to, we won't meet with, we won't associate ourselves with, and that's a good thing, particularly if it's based on a moral judgment. And so all the people who say we don't deplatform are people who are mostly promoting this crap. I just feel at some point they're going to have to bite the bullet. Our young people deserve better. Real debates. It can be big differences. And I'm not talking about Israel per se. I'm talking about if you really are a mouthpiece for a foreign enemy and giving aid and comfort to that foreign enemy that is spending billions to destroy our country and to fund terrorism like the Muslim Brotherhood, you should not be promoted or a headliner at a Turning Point USA event any more than you should be promoted or a headliner at a Young Americans for Freedom event. I mean, we've got a big enough battle on our hands. We've got to deal with this cancer within. I'm not talking about purifying our thought processes. I'm talking about having our own red lines. Our own red lines. In fact, I want you to hear something the other day that Erica Kirk had to say, because I think she is a genuinely moral and thoughtful person. I've met her a few times. Don't know her well. I met her when we were with Charlie from time to time. Let's go to that, Mr. Producer. That is cut 28. Go.
Hate is hate. It's evil. Charlie and I have always been very clear on our stance. Israel and Jewish people. It's awful. Awful. Anti-Semitism is what healing factor comes out of hating Jewish people? What healing factor comes out of hating Christians? What healing factor comes out? Hate in general. Nothing. Nothing. Charlie always would say very clearly, Jew hate was brain rot. He would always say it. We've been to Israel twice together. And to be able to walk in the place where our Lord walked and see the Bible come to life in Technicolor, how could you hate that place? How could you hate the Jewish people?
And here's Charlie, last year, a little over a year ago, at Cambridge University, debating one of these phony eggheads who was just trashing the hell out of Israel regarding the war with Hamas. And as it turns out now, the data, the evidence is now indisputable. Always was, but it's even underscored by Hamas, that the overwhelming majority of those who were killed during the war, 80% were men and were terrorists. 80%. All those lies. And the truth will never catch up with those lies. It'll never catch up with those lies. The people weren't being starved by Israel, and the children were not being slaughtered by Israel, and the women were not being slaughtered by Israel. That's what Hamas does. That's what the Islamists do. Here's Charlie, a little over a year ago, cut 27, go.
Let me ask you, in the conflict of Israel versus Hamas, who's the good guy?
I believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil, but I think also that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children.
Well, let's
futile.
Let's zero in on it.
There is no justification, Mr. Kirk, for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West's security.
You've made that point, but
it's not a point; it's a moral truth, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish, I let you talk. Israel, at its holiest day of the calendar year besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, Samat Torah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War. On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200 plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the IDF, when they do something right, they get no credit. When they do life-saving surgeries of a Gazan child, they get no credit. When they drop leaflets, they get no credit. But when they happen to bomb a place where they are operating their military from, which we now know from third-party verified sources, hundreds of Hamas military operations are in mosques, schools, and hospitals. I'm sorry, the country where they were living in relative peace on October 6th, that all of a sudden we had a war and Hamas started the war. And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves. The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded. There is a good guy and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Isn't that the morality of a child?
Well, hold on. It's interesting you say that, because a child who knows that Israel is the good guy, Hamas is bad, has a lot more wisdom than a student like yourself at Cambridge University.
That's the Charlie I knew and was friends with. That's the TPUSA that I knew and admired. And I would encourage that those principles that Charlie spoke about and Erica spoke about in December should be the guiding principles, the guiding light of TPUSA going forward. It's not a matter of deplatforming. It's a matter of advancing principles and a cause. You don't debate everybody and anybody. You don't have negotiations with anybody and everybody. You don't have diplomacy with everybody and anybody. I call these diplomacy mongers. And also, just a few months ago, Stephen Watson, the commander of the Manchester Police. Manchester is now heavily Islamist in England. He is the commander. Cut 26, go.
Jewish children are the only children in our country who day to day go to school behind large fences guarded by people with visi jackets, and where there are routine police patrols in and around those areas. Our Jewish communities put up with a way of life in our country today that nobody else has to put up with. I do think that there is something very significant in that, something very significant in the realization of it, and we all, I think, need to question ourselves afresh as the dynamic continues to change as to whether what we are doing continues to be adequate.
And then finally, before the break, Van Jones, who's been extraordinarily good and principled on this matter. Cut 25, go.
There are 1.3 billion Chinese people in the world. God bless them. There are 1.4 billion Indians in the world. God bless them. There are 1.3 billion Africans in the world. God bless us. There are 1.4 billion Catholics. I'm a Protestant. 1.4 billion Catholics in the world. There are 2 billion Muslims. There's only 15 million Jews left in the whole world. Only 15 million left. Their numbers would have been massively bigger if it weren't for the Holocaust and the centuries of violence against them before. And you have 15 million left, and half of them live in Israel. Half of them, by the way, if you want to play the color game, are people of color who are Jews that got chased out of Yemen. Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews, they got chased out of Yemen, they got chased out of Egypt, they got chased out of Ethiopia, and they share their country with 20% Arabs who have mosques and rights inside of Israel. But it is the tiniest little place in the world, smaller than, the people say it's smaller than New Jersey. It is smaller than Phoenix County in Arizona. And that's where half of the world, the remaining Jews in the world, are clinging to their existence. And when that group comes under attack, humanity has a special responsibility to defend them. Now, sometimes you're going to like their government, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're going to like their political policies, their economic policies, their military policies. That is completely fine to debate. But the idea that the West should abandon them to their fate we already ran a 3,000-year experiment where Jews did not have a state, and it ended with Hitler's hell and Hitler's ovens. We are not going to run that experiment again. We don't have to do it again. We already did it. And anybody who can't understand the basic logic of that needs to explain why they can't do basic math about who in the world is the most microscopic minority that deserves the support of humanity.
Compare that to Fuentes and Carlson and all the other frauds and phonies and disgusting debris. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. A couple more, then I'm going to change the subject a little bit in the final hour. But I think it's very, very important. A Muslim scholar last month, so-called Muslim scholar, cut 29, go.
Peoples, societies, cultures, they create false gods. They love gods that are not true, and those gods divert them from the worship of the true God. And Islam is sent to liberate the minds of people from those false gods and call to the worship of Allah alone. Now, in our times, it is true that the type of idolatry that was practiced in Arabia is almost gone, especially in the world around us. But many of us don't realize that we are living at a time and a place, in a society where there are many other types of false gods that prevent us, that hinder us from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of times those modern gods, our modern gods, are not constructed of bricks and stones, but they are concepts and ideas. Whether it is the idea of materialism, whether it is the veneration of the nation state. So we learn from the seerah, brothers and sisters, that the goal is never just to be accepted by society. The goal is never just to live a comfortable life. If that had been the goal of the Prophet ﷺ, he would have accepted any one of these compromises. But the goal is never acceptance.
All right, thank you, and that's enough for him. That's enough for him. Now for Mandami. For our friends in New York City. Cut 3, go.
And I consider my own faith, Islam, a religion built upon a narrative of migration. The story of the Hijrah reminds us that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. Surah An-Nahl 1642 tells us, as for those who immigrated in the cause of Allah after being persecuted, we will surely bless them with a good home in this world. Or as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Islam began as something strange and will go back to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers. If faith...
Except, of course, you can stop that. Except, of course, if you want to go to Saudi Arabia or Qatar, the regime in Iran, even Turkey, other parts of the Arab Muslim world. You know, there are countries like Indonesia and so forth that do not preach this. Majority Muslim countries, in fact, Indonesia is the largest. But these are Islamists. He preaches this, but he doesn't really mean it in the reverse. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. This has received precious little attention, ladies and gentlemen. Fox News watchdog releases scathing report on Tlaib's alleged ties to terrorist groups, warning of potential risks. Well, she should be expelled from Congress. But the Democrats will oppose it, the media will oppose it, there'll be Islamophobia. I'm sorry, I don't care. Here we go. Comprehensive new briefing document from a prominent nonpartisan research and policy group is sounding the alarm on, quote, serious ethical and national security concerns, unquote, related to Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib and her affiliations with individuals and organizations linked to designated foreign terrorist entities. Quote, the conduct of Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, including her rhetoric, affiliations, campaign infrastructure, and ideological alignment with certain individuals and organizations, raises serious concerns about potential risks to the ethical and institutional integrity of the United States government. The report released by the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy's Advocacy and Policy-Oriented Arm. The report provides details of a, quote, recurring pattern, unquote, of behavior that it says suggests an ideological affinity for radical movements ranging from participation in conferences featuring convicted terrorists to significant campaign payments made to activists linked to Hamas and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine-aligned networks. Well, those are terrorist networks. The briefing covers Tlaib's financial history and says her campaign apparatus poured large sums of cash into anti-Israel activists, including almost 600,000 between 2000 and 2025 to Unbought Power, a consulting firm headed by Rashad Mubarak. Mubarak has faced scrutiny for her past affiliation with another Hamas front group, the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2009 Holy Land Foundation terror financing trial, and the Alliance for Global Justice, which has been investigated for ties, again, to the PFLP-linked group Samadon. Tlaib, according to the briefing, has shared the stage with a variety of questionable figures, highlighted by a conference alongside Wissam Rafidi, a convicted PFLP operative who defended the October 7 Hamas terrorist attack as resistance. These people are all in our country, you understand? They're all operating in our country. Do they love America? You know, let me just point this out while I'm at this point. The purpose of immigration is to improve our society, is to strengthen our society, is for foreigners to contribute to our society. It's the well-being of the citizenry that's here, not to replace the citizenry, which is what the Democrats have done or seek to do, or to give illegal immigrants or immigrants of any kind who are not here as citizens yet the same rights as citizens and so forth and so on. You have to earn your citizenship. You have to earn your right to come into this country. It used to be a very difficult vetting system. Instead, people who are honorable, people who do want to assimilate into the country, they got to wait 10 years and spend a fortune. But these other people, they cut to the front of the line. They come into the country. They have all kinds of taxpayer-financed advocates and lawyers. Quote, through public endorsement and co-sponsorship and amplification, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is consistently engaged with a range of organizations known to maintain operation or ideological ties to terrorist networks. Tlaib has engaged with and disseminated the messaging of these groups and has shared related content on social media platforms, has participated in events organized by these groups, and has referenced their terminology and conceptual frameworks in official congressional communications. How many of you read this in the New York Times? Well, you don't read it, but it's not there. How many of you heard this on network news? None of you. This just is going on right under our noses, right in front of our eyes, not under the radar, on the radar. And it's treated like no big deal. It's a massive deal. She was first censured in November 2023 for promoting alleged false narratives regarding the October 7 Hamas attacks. A second resolution was introduced in September 2025 following her appearance at the People's Conference for Palestine, quote unquote, where speakers allegedly whitewashed convicted Hamas financiers. This woman's in Congress, you understand? Tlaib's language made another appearance in the briefing as ISGAP action described anti-Semitic tropes used by Michigan Congresswomen on multiple occasions. The report cites an August 2021 event where Tlaib referenced, quote, people behind the Iron Curtain making money off racism for Gaza to Detroit. And they go on and on. The briefing goes further than issuing warnings about Tlaib's record and calls on government agencies to take specific action. It calls for a formal congressional inquiry into her conduct that specifically reviews her statements that allegedly align with terrorist organizations, her attendance at events honoring convicted terrorists, and a thorough review of her campaign fundraising sources. Additionally, the briefing asked the Department of Justice National Security Division to conduct a legal review to determine if she or her affiliate have violated 18 U.S. Code 2339B, which prohibits providing material support to foreign terrorist organizations. See, I think CARE is operating in this country illegally, and it ought to be shut down. Now, we have a Republican Department of Justice, a Republican DHS, a Republican Congress, as tight as it is. Are they going to do it? Have they done it? No. Have they done it? Why won't they do it? Last year, Tlaib's name came up in another ISGAP action report that highlighted what it called a multiple generational campaign by the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the mothership. To transform Western society from within and covertly infiltrate the United States. God, that's happening. The election and re-election of congresswomen such as Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who've openly defended positions aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood perspectives on Israel, counterterrorism, and international relations, demonstrates the intersection of identity politics and Brotherhood narratives, the report states. Hell, their attack on President Trump demonstrates it too. While neither congresswoman has a documented formal affiliation with the Muslim Brotherhood, both have appeared at events organized by the Muslim Brotherhood-aligned organizations, have received campaign support from Brotherhood-aligned donors, and have consistently advocated positions aligned with Brotherhood objectives. The Muslim Brotherhood is the mothership of terrorism, funded in large part by Qatar. Now, I don't know how much longer we have to put up with this crap. It's not a secret. I have used this voice loudly to point this out over and over and over again, whether it's on Fox, whether it's on radio, wherever it is. It's all factual. Factual. How do these organizations operate right under our noses like this? When the Republicans control Washington, D.C., how is that possible? And yet it's happening. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, Representative Chris Smith is one of the unsung heroes because he's not flashy. He doesn't seek a lot of FaceTime on TV and so forth. And I've known him for a damn long time. He's a very courageous man. Chris, you've been... Are you the longest-serving member of the House right now? Pretty close, right?
Hal Rogers and I both came in with Ronald Reagan in 1981.
Who did? Who was the other?
So, Hal Rogers from Kentucky.
Oh, he's still in there? No offense. I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
But you were elected. How old were you?
27.
You were 27. My God.
I lost it when I was 25 and kept running and won when I was 27.
And when you ran, it was a tough district. It was marginally Democrat, as I recall.
I had tough districts until right now. I had 40 years of Democrat districts, and you know, it's been a struggle. But you know, I persevere. I got a great wife who stands by me in all things, and we've persevered. And Mark, I know you know this, but you really do a great job. I listen to you coming back from work every time we're in session, and you do a wonderful job. So clear, concise, and
well, thank you.
And I agree with you. You're just amazing.
You're very kind. Let me ask you this though: your district, just because I'm curious, is give us an example of some of the towns in your district.
Toms River and Lakewood are two of the biggest.
Wow.
I used to have the city of Trenton, which is very Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
I had Willingboro once. I had a number of very Democratic cities and municipalities. I still have some. I mean, Lakewood's got a Democrat for a mayor, but they tend to vote Republican. They also have an assemblyman who's a Democrat. So there are a lot of ticket splitters. But and Toms River is you know, the county seat, so it's a pretty big town. Brick is very big. So it's Monmouth and Ocean counties that I have. Middletown is further north.
It's a big area you've got.
Yes. Oh, it is. It is. But I've had 7 districts over the years. I've been gerrymandered several times, and some of them were so hostile to throw me out.
But now they can't beat you. They've tried. Look what they're doing in Virginia, by the way. Now that I had look, they want to blow out basically 5 Republican seats. They want to allow 1 Republican seat, 10. I think it's 10 Democrat seats in a state that is marginally purple.
I know. It's
What
an
do you
abuse
make
of
of
power.
that?
It really is. I think it's an abuse of power. You know, the courts used to have other criteria that they would look at besides one person per vote. And it would be, you know, continuity in terms of interests and things like that. And now gerrymandering is a blood sport, and it should not be.
And let's be honest, they keep talking about Texas. It started with California and Illinois and Massachusetts.
Oh, of course it did. And New Jersey. I mean,
and New Jersey,
we
yep.
used to, I mean, we were narrowed down to one for a while, and that one was me. We didn't have anyone. Jeff Van Drew, thankfully, became a good, solid Republican. He's done a great job. And so that made it two. Now we have Tom King Jr., the three of us.
Tell us about Hong Kong, now controlled by China, and this really fantastic billionaire put his whole freedom on the line. He's an old man to try and defend these young people who were protesting for democracy. Talk about that.
Sure. Jimmy Lai is a hero's hero. He is noble. He could have fled. He made he's a rag to riches story. Eventually ran Apple News and was he and his paper spoke truth to power every single day. And in Hong Kong, there used to be, when the transfer occurred from the UK to China, there was a 50-year agreement that the basic law would stay unchanged. And the basic law looks a lot like our Bill of Rights. It's very, very good. And they also had an agreement, an international treaty called the Sino-UK Treaty, and that promised all of these human rights and democracy, true courts that where you can adjudicate a case, due process rights, everything. And Xi Jinping wasn't going to have any of it. I began to see it, frankly, when they began really pushing. We had the umbrella revolution because young people like Joshua Wong and all these amazing people who are in prison today said, we just want the fresh air of democracy, the oxygen, and not, dictatorship and the like the mainland China. And Xi Jinping took what was really an economic powerhouse, even for them, because they benefited from it, and now has turned it into another pariah state like his own China. They passed a law a few years ago called the National Security Act law, and that law is, if somebody talks to me or you, a foreigner, and we talk about human rights, you're now colluding with people outside the country who need to be held to account. And that's what they convicted Jimmy Lai of last December, of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces. What is that? So when China talks to the UN and their premier who makes a speech at the General Assembly there, every year they have those heads of state, he's colluding with foreign forces. It's so elastic. Any conversation can be construed to be a violation of their national security, and they're very aggressive. They're ubiquitous. They're secret police. They listened in on everything. So back in 2014, I introduced the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. It took me 5 years to get it passed in the House. Marco Rubio championed it on the Senate side. He got it passed. I got it passed. And it recognizes that all the trade agreements and the special status we had afforded Hong Kong it will no longer be if they prove that they're not living up to their obligations, particularly with respect to their own citizenry. So any businessman or woman doing business there, watch out. At a moment's notice, you could be thrown into jail. I have a bill coming up soon that talks about Americans throughout all of China who constantly get thrown into jail when somebody just brings charges against them. These are men and women in business. And they're, we're hoping. I had a hearing on it a year ago, and we had some of the families who are fighting for their own families who are in prison on false charges. So it's become, China itself is a gulag state. Xi Jinping is committing genocide, as we all know, in Xinjiang against the Uyghurs, against the Tibetan Buddhists, and against the Christians. He's cracking down. I just had a woman whose dad at a hearing, and Sam Brownback was at the hearing as well, our lead witness. And, they're just crushing the churches and putting people into prison. And when they crush them, they torture and they torture and they torture. China, the Chinese people deserve better than the Chinese Communist Party. So here we have this amazing man, Jimmy Lai. I had his son, Sebastian, testify at the China Commission because I do co-chair it, and I was in the chairman's position then. And he was brilliant. defending his father. I even said, Sebastian, you're a chip off the old block. You are just, your father has to be so proud of you. And then he's got a daughter that we've gotten to know very well, just like Sebastian. And I'm looking to do a hearing soon where they will be the only two witnesses to bear witness to their father. He's got a 20-year sentence. He's 78. That's a life sentence for doing nothing but promoting honesty, transparency, and human rights. And democracy, of course. And, I remember when we had, Joshua Wong come to a big press conference we had, one of his great student leaders. They've thrown the book at him. They've thrown it at all the great and the best and the brightest in China, as they have done on the mainland. And now they've got their sights set on Taiwan as well.
And you know what, Congressman, Taiwan, or Formosa, has never been part of the mainland of China, ever. And they claim it, but they're also picking fights with Japan and Australia and the Philippines and South Korea and Vietnam. And I want to talk about that with you when we return, if you can stay for a little bit. We'll be right back with Congressman Chris Smith. He's a great man. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We are here with Representative Chris Smith of New Jersey. We've been talking about a number of things, including what Communist China is doing to Jimmy Lai. Or is it Lai or Lay?
Lai, Jimmy Lai.
Jimmy Lai, who was really a hero. The man was a multi-billionaire. He could have left, as Congressman Smith points out, but he stayed there right to the end. And his papers were free and open right to the end, challenging the communist regime. Very, very brave man. He had to know that he was taking his life in his own hands. Could have taken his money and left. He did not. He stood by the young college-age students, many of whom are also serving time in prison. God knows what they do to them. They must torture them and beat them and treat them like dirt. But I wanted to ask you something. You're like a real humanitarian, Chris. So here we have the regime in Iran, this Islamist regime that's slaughtering tens of thousands of people and so forth and so on. What's your take on what we should do about this?
About China, I think we...
No, about Iran.
About Iran. Oh, I think we need to be bold. The fact that look how many people have been killed, tens of thousands.
Yep.
Plus they killed many Americans directly, as well as through the IEDs, which they provided against us in the war. Many of our soldiers died, and they're the ones that are directly responsible for that. So I think, the fact that we have a serious capability right near the coast in striking distance, we need to up the pressure very significantly on the Ayatollah and his people. They're just waiting to get through this, and then they'll start, trying to acquire nuclear weapons all over again. It's not a redeemable group of people. They are all into murder, killing Jews and Christians alike, but especially Jews. I mean, their anti-Semitism is off the charts. They fired out Israel.
They're killing Muslims too.
And they're killing, that's always the untold story. The moderate non-jihadists who are there are either, and Hamas does that too. They're either coerced from early childhood or they kill them if they won't go along with the program of hatred. So I think the president's got a lot of options that he's weighing. I'm not sure where he's going to go with it yet, but he's laying down some very important markers, which we didn't see at all during the Biden administration, nor did we see it during the Obama administration. All they wanted to do was do a nuclear deal no matter what happened, knowing that they would break it with impunity, which they did. So it's, and the hope is that we can really...
But you said something very important, Chris. You said they're irredeemable. In other words, they may not, but they may sign an agreement, but they have no intention of complying with it. They haven't complied with it. To me, it reminds me of North Korea. They signed agreement after agreement after agreement. We subsidized them the billions of dollars, and there they are, 2006, 2007, and they break out with a nuclear weapon. I just feel it's similar in that respect.
We don't seem to learn that these people are certifiable with regard. Maybe they've got mental problems, but no matter what it is, they have their hands on the button, and the button is a nuclear weapon, and that's exactly what they want.
All right, Chris Smith. It's always an honor to have you on. You take care of yourself. Be safe, brother.
Yeah, and we are, just so you know, tomorrow I get a big hearing on DR Congo, and it'll be
Tell
like
us
the
about
third
it.
in a row. Well, we're trying to, the president, I was there in early December when he had an agreement with Tshisekedi and Kagame, the two presidents, and I had to pinch myself that, because I've been working on this myself for 30 years, and president got it done. 2 days later, M23, this terrible group that slaughters people and rapes women, and Kagame could stop it if he would from Rwanda. And they're attacking and killing and maiming just like nothing had happened. So the president's been very strong. I do believe he's going to issue real serious sanctions soon. They're pushing hard to get the agreement so that it could be put back together. I met with Tshisekedi last week, as did others, including our chairman of the full Committee on Veterans Foreign Affairs. And what we're trying to say is, you've signed it, you've given your word, stop killing. And what's at the core of it all is all of the mineral wealth that is coveted by people who are willing to kill to get it. And that's just got to stop. And so there's a UN force there, a very large one. We're pushing that they be much more robust and not have a garrison mentality. They need to protect. That's what they're there for. That's what we're paying the peacekeepers to do. And I've been to Goma, the places that we're talking about myself, and it's really so. Tomorrow will be the third installation of a hearing. This will be with NGOs. I had the illustration 2 weeks ago. They want to get this right, so the pressure is on. And again, if we put real sanctions on the bad guys that are causing this to implode, I think it'll make a huge difference, particularly if Kagame himself is sanctioned, the president of Rwanda.
I know what I meant to ask you earlier. Still Rwanda, right? Rwanda. All right, this is what I meant to ask you. Are you free to travel in China, or do you fear that you would be
I've
disappeared?
been barred. I've been barred after the bill that says forced organ harvesting has to stop in China, where tens of thousands are killed to get their organs for sale or used by Communist Party cadres who get new livers. They're killing tens of thousands, average age 20-year-olds, every single day, a year, and they're mostly Uyghurs or Falun Gong or Christians. And I got a bill passed, 406 to 1. It has sat over in the Senate for a year, and I got it passed.
Why? Why does it sit there?
I don't know why. I've asked Senator Risch, who's the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, please mark it up, bring it up, and it will stop the supply chain, because it is a tainted supply chain. So anybody, and I linked it to the law that I wrote 25 years ago, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. I'm the prime author of it, that you can get up to 20 years in prison if you are part of a supply chain that is tainted with, trafficking, and this is trafficking in organs. And we just got to get it passed. It'll also put real sanctions on anyone in China that is aiding and abetting this. Xi Jinping and Putin, when they had that infamous laugh together just months ago about living till they're 125 with organs, where do you think they're going to get them? They're going to get them from these dissidents and from people who live very clean lives, like Falun Gong. They don't drink, they don't smoke, and they kill women and men, equally divided, average age 28, 25 to 30 is the range they look for to steal their organs. It's Joseph Mengele in current days, the Nazi infamous doctor.
All right, Chris,
So I'm
keep
trying
up
to
your
get this bill
foot. Yeah, I know. I don't understand why it's sitting anywhere, to be honest with you. All right, brother, I'm going to run. I really
Just bring it up,
appreciate
yeah.
you.
Thank you,
And
Mark.
keep up the fight, Chris.
Never stop. And thank you, because you've been so great on trafficking, too. Really.
Well, you're a great man. Appreciate you, buddy. He's a great guy. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, let's take a few calls. let's see here. Let's go to Jim, Morgan City, Indiana, the great WLS. How are you?
Hey, doing fine, Mr. Levin. Thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate
Thanks for
your
waiting.
show.
You got it. Thank you.
And thank you for doing it. I'd just like to say about the Muslim religion, some things people need to realize. Muslim religion, first, you know, they worship Allah, not our God as we know it in the Judeo-Christian way. Their messenger is Muhammad. And then they have jihad. Well, jihad means holy war. And in the Muslim religion, they're talking about...
And by the way, did you hear all the imams and scholars? I was playing clips. I could go on all night. Who are talking about jihad, and it's an obligation.
Well, yes, and what a lot of people don't realize, it's not just terrorism and so forth. Jihad means the total annihilation or destruction or killing of those and that do not worship Allah. And I think people here need to let that soak in, and I don't see where any part of that is compatible with this great nation, the United States of America. And our leaders need to start.
If people want to come to this country, they're supposed to assimilate into our culture. They can practice their faith as long as they're respectful of other faiths and don't try to impose their faith on anybody else. You can proselytize, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about violence. And so I know several Muslims who are reformist Muslims who embrace the Enlightenment, who embrace our founding. But there are the Islamists, and they represent a minority. But nonetheless, a minority of 2 billion people is a lot of people, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, and they're doing a lot of damage.
All right, Jim. Thank you for your call. Let's go to George, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, my old stomping grounds. How are you, George?
All right, Mark, and because of open borders, every enemy of America has their people inside of America. Mm-hmm. And when you hear those clowns down in Texas, and it's growing all over the country, I mean, it's time that we just do what we have to do, get rid of the 65 Immigration Act. They're letting them in every day. A few weeks ago, I was at Kennedy Airport, and these people were coming in with tourist visas. Who goes on a vacation with all their worldly possessions? No, because they're not going to be leaving. And the third world has invaded America, and we don't want to leave this to our children and grandchildren. And you talk about a nuclear arsenal. Well, who's going to be in charge of it inside of America? It's going to be Omar. It's going to be Cortez, Jeffries, all these psychopathic left-wingers as we become the minority. Their game is to get rid of the conservative movement. That's their big game. They feel once the population gets to 400 million, the conservative movement will be nothing. They could have their all their meetings in a phone booth that don't even exist anymore. So that's it. Get rid of the 65 Immigration Act. Get rid of all these illegals who are creating congressional districts,
But see how they're fighting like hell? They want to destroy ICE. They've already destroyed our immigration system, let's be honest. The rules don't apply to the left, to the Islamists, to the Marxists, to whatever. They just don't apply to them anymore. George, thank you, my friend. Let's keep moving. Let's go to Jerry, El Paso, Texas, the great KTSM. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mark. Mark, I would like to abolish Sharia law as a law in the United States. It is not compatible to the U.S. Constitution. In fact, it is an opponent, a hindrance, an enemy to the Constitution. And if we don't stop it, it will be pushed on everybody, and it's being pushed on some of our kids in our schools today.
I just saw that. I mean, I've heard about it. I see it's being pushed in a number of these public school districts. I mean, that's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I can't even get the 10 Commandments posted in the classrooms over here without a judge in Texas saying it's wrong. But they will allow Sharia, the 5 pillars of Islam, to be pushed in there. And it can be done, Mark. They did it against polygamy and bigamy back in the 1800s. 1862, in fact, is when they first passed it in Congress. And then it passed muster in the SCOTUS.
I think if they were to pass a law in a state, or even in the Congress, that said Sharia law is not to supplant civil law. That would fly. And I don't know why they don't. Great calls tonight, Jerry. Thank you. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, in Israel, in Iran, and you, the American people. Together we shall overcome. See you tomorrow.